Awesome. Here we go. Can you see it?
What's up, BMSA? My name is Megan Giles. I'm Media Chair. Welcome to our 4th general meeting. And if you haven't already, make sure you're following us on all social media at BMSA_BU. I hope you've survived midterms and are ready to finish out the semester strong. We are so excited for you to hear from our panel of medical students tonight, so please be sure to give them your undivided attention. But first, a word from the officers.
Hi everyone, welcome back to another general meeting. My name is Delaney Hsu and I'm BMSA's current president for this school year. Just a quick reminder to be sure to get in your 50 points for the semester, 10 of those coming from service events and 10 of those coming from academic workshops. The other 30 can come from anything you want. Be sure to pay close attention to our speaker who's taking their time to come speak to us tonight, and enjoy the meeting.
Hi everyone, it's Sarah, this year's service chair. I wanted to make you aware of a new service opportunity. Cove Education, also known as CoveEd, is an educational nonprofit that provides free tutoring and mentorship to K-12 students from underserved school districts across the country. If you are interested in volunteering with this organization, please check out our sign-up sheet for more information. Remember, you need 10 service points by the end of the semester to achieve active status. Have a great week and sign up for service.
Hello everyone, my name is Aman Patel. I'm the Research and Internship Chair this semester. So we have fun new workshops that lined up for you in the next 2 weeks. We have the MD versus DO workshop on the 22nd and the 26th of March from 7 to 8 p.m. This workshop is a great opportunity to talk to a DO student. We will have a DO student present to answer any questions that you may have. Next, we have our gap year workshop 7 to 8 on the 29th of March and the 1st of April. And finally, we have our undergraduate research panel on the 24th of March at 6 p.m. This is also a great opportunity to ask questions to your peers who are in research labs about how to get into research, what do they do in lab, and learn lots of interesting things that can help you succeed in your research lab in the future. I hope everyone has a wonderful week.
Everyone, this is Daniel Jones, one of your Global Health Co-Chairs this year. I just wanted to let you know that we have 2 great workshops coming up this week. There is World Health Organization on the 25th at 6 p.m. and a medical terminology workshop also on the 25th at 7 p.m. Hope to see you all there.
Hey everyone, it's Jasmine, the Community Outreach Chair. If you want to help out in giving the children in Waco a fun Easter celebration, then you're in luck. COIS is holding a donation drive for Mission Waco's Easter egg hunt, so please donate a dozen plastic eggs to get 5 points with a 10-point max. Eggs can be found at the dollar store, and there will be a box in the BSB atrium to drop your donation off. Thanks so much for supporting the Waco community.
Thanks for tuning in tonight. Contact the officers if you have any questions and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. And be sure to follow us on all social media to keep up with all the fun.
Cool. Thanks for paying attention to biweekly rounds. I'm excited for you guys to get to be able to hear from all of our med students. So be sure to pay attention to them because they've taken a good chunk of their day or time out of their day to come talk to you guys. So with that, Cameron, our vice president, is going to start us off.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Cameron, and I am the BMSA Vice President. Thank you all for joining our meeting today. We have a very special meeting because last semester, we surveyed hundreds of BMSA members and asked them, how can we improve BMSA? And so I was tasked last semester with continuing our general meetings, and I would conduct presentations with medical guest speakers and you would all submit your questions online. And so I would ask them in person for you. And on that survey that we sent out, there was a question about how we could specifically improve the general meetings. And there was a resounding response that all you wanted more medical school stuff, which I totally understand, and I'm here for it. And this is why we decided to invite a panelist of medical students to answer all of your burning questions about everything medical school. We have had you beforehand submit some questions online that our officers will ask our guests. And then near the end, we would like for our live audience members who did not get a chance to submit their questions, either message them directly to me or unmute yourselves and ask them yourselves. We made this meeting live to allow you the opportunity to speak, so please take advantage of that. There are no dumb questions. I'm sure if you're thinking about it, someone else has also thought about it. And so let's begin, and let's first start by introducing our panelists and who we have here today. Just tell them a little bit about yourself, and we can get started. Who would ever like to go first?
I'll go ahead and start. My name is Jada Martin. I attended Baylor last year, I guess. It's been a whole long year since then, but I graduated in 2020, and I'm a first-year med student at UT Southwestern in Dallas. Is that all you needed? Okay.
I'll go ahead and go next. Hi, my name is Monica Martinez. I'm also a first-year medical student. I am at UT Health San Antonio, otherwise known as Long School of Medicine. We kind of go by both, so it's however you've heard of us. And I went to UT Austin for undergrad. I double majored in biochem and neuroscience, and I just graduated in 2020.
Hey everyone, my name's Chase. I graduated from Baylor 2 years ago, and I go to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester. And so I took 2 gap years in between going to med school, and more than happy to answer questions about that.
Hi, I'm Reagan. I'm a second-year medical student, and I graduated Baylor in 2019. I'm at USU School of Medicine, which is located in Bethesda, Maryland, like right next door to the NIH. But I'm currently doing my surgery rotations in Hawaii, so a little bit different.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. So we're definitely going to get into everything medical school, which our members are very excited about. But one major concern for us undergraduates is how first do we get there? It's a very daunting task, and we are constantly trying to improve ourselves to be the best possible version that we can, but sometimes we aren't exactly sure how to do that. And we get this question all the time: what am I supposed to be doing right now to prepare for medical school? And so we're going to dive into exactly what that means. And so my first question is, well, when trying to get into medical school, does research help my chances of getting accepted, even if I do not plan on doing research in the future? And so did all of you do research in college, and how did that impact your medical school journey? And so I'm going to kick it off with Jada, because I know this answer and I was a little surprised to hear it.
So big shocker, I did not do any research in college. The big overarching question is, will it help me? I think research helps you, just like volunteer work and leadership experience. Those things help you when you're passionate about it and you're doing it because you want to. You're not going to get the same benefits of doing research if you are just doing it to get to medical school, because you're going to get to an interview day and every single person is going to see right through it. That was something that I struggled with in college. Like, I felt everybody was doing research and I just didn't have that interest. So I decided I was going to stick to my guns and do what I felt I was passionate about. And all I can say is it worked out. I'm here. So that's my take on research. Do the things in undergrad that make you happy, that, you know, give you purpose. Don't do things just to get into medical school.
Yeah, jumping in there. I think Jade is completely right. I think for certain med schools, they definitely like research. And if you don't like research, you probably may not like being at that med school. And so you just have to be honest with yourself of what you're looking for. One of the big things for me is at Baylor, I didn't really think there was that many research opportunities that excited me. Whereas now in medical school, it's not like organic chemistry research. I mean, it's very simple and there's a lot more opportunities available to you. So I definitely wouldn't write off research at this stage of your career. I definitely think there's a lot you can do for patients. It may look different than what is mostly lab science research at Baylor that I've seen. But yeah, know yourself, find what you're passionate about, and don't feel pressured to be something that you're not.
Yeah, I definitely want to, I guess, third at this point, everything that's been said so far. I think there's a lot of pressure of what is everybody else doing? What do they want from me? And research can be helpful to your application if it's something that you can talk about and can talk about genuinely and from a place where you're actually excited about it. I kind of went back and forth in undergrad and I was like, oh, like there's this opportunity to work in a lab over ion channels. I was like, I feel like that makes sense with what my major is, but like I like went and like shadowed, I guess, around the lab to see about it. And I was like, I'm so bored, like, and I'm only here for 30 minutes. Like, I don't want to do this. And I ended up doing research at St. David's Hospital. And it was technically like clinical research. It was like 3 hours a week, but really it just looked like learning what the IRB process was and hanging out with people that did research at the hospital and just talking to different people that worked there and be like, hey, like, what do you need? Like, what do you want? Like, okay, like, let's work with VR companies and do this. And so I was more excited to talk to people and kind of go about it that route. And so, like Chase said, research might not look the way that you think it is. I think with research, you just think, oh, pipetting all day, but it really can be whatever you want it to be. And so if you're maybe even interested in like sociology or like psychology or something else, like I know Baylor has a lot of funding and has a lot of different departments. And so you could literally just do whatever interests you. And medical schools would much rather see that you devoted your time to something that you actually enjoy and can talk about more than just like, I did it and I didn't like it.
So I did research in college. I did 2 different projects. One was like a more sciencey based, and the other was like a patient care based. It was at Baylor Scott and White, and I would say the second one interested me more. The first one I kind of did get my feet wet. They during interview process they did ask me about it and like asked me to tell them about it, but that was basically the extent. They like wanted to know how involved I was and like if that was something that I really enjoyed spending my time doing. Yeah, and in med school, I reached out to like a reproduction and endocrinology like fellow who was working on a fertility project, and like she didn't even ask about my like research history. She just like wanted me to get involved. So I would say it's not like a precursor for even like getting involved in research in medical school. So yeah, definitely make it your own.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for sharing. So for the next question, it's kind of like a 2-in-1 type of thing, but what is something that you wish you knew as an undergrad that you do know now? And then what's something that you wish you could go back and change in undergrad if you could? And y'all are totally free to popcorn this one out or go reverse of what you did last time or whatever you want.
This is very like this might not be super helpful on like what to do like to get into medical school, but definitely will make whatever you do after college so much easier is figure out how to maximize your own like happiness and health in undergrad. I think I had like super unhealthy habits in college where I was like, oh, I'm just not going to sleep and I'm going to do this and like I'm going to eat whatever I want. And I was like, oh, I'll figure it out in medical school. It is so much harder to do that as a first year medical student. I'm like forcing myself to do it. But eventually like your body and your mind, like mental health will catch up to you. And so I definitely wish that I would have had somebody tell me, hey, like undergrad is the perfect time to figure out what you need as a function, like to make you a functional human being, and kind of get those routines down and then kind of go ahead. I know a lot of interest is like how to get into medical school and stuff, but I think also like within your application, like there's parts to talk about like what you do for yourself and what you like to do for fun. And that's definitely something that is something to be proud of, to be like, hey, like I know how to take care of myself and will definitely make the med school transition. You'll be able to do a lot better in medical school if you have a really solid foundation for yourself.
I think something that I know now that I wish I would have stuck with throughout undergrad was that it's okay to evolve and adapt throughout the whole process. I can't tell you how many times I've changed my study habits this year. I've been in medical school for like 8 months and nothing works class to class. You've got to be on your toes and be ready. And I thought that's something that I just kind of left behind freshman year when I was figuring things out. And I just kind of got into a routine and a system. And I think there's a lot of value in always being able to up your game study wise and don't get complacent, because change is inevitable and you want to be ready for it.
This is kind of a similar thread, but like just know that like changing your mind is okay. I changed my mind about what medical school I wanted to go to like pretty last minute, and it ended up making me incredibly happy. So just like don't be afraid to change your mind about what school you want to go to, or like even if pre-med is right for you. Like if something about PT interests you more, or you think that like a gap year would be really cool, like don't be afraid to like do that and like change your mind, because things will work out.
I think I kind of have a grab bag of ideas. The first is that there's really cool summer programs. I know I use the summers as a break, but if you are interested in research, there's a lot of good ones. A lot of my friends got hooked up in the research and didn't really know those programs existed till I graduated. I'd say I'd echo like find what works for you and try to have some type of exercise routine, and that doesn't have to be marathons or working or lifting weights. It can be yoga, but just something. I think that's something that's pretty consistent with the physicians I hear up here, is that everyone has some sort of exercise routine. And then one of the things that I've done this year especially is I go online a lot more for information, like from Reddit. Now there's a lot of like for pre-med, there's a lot of Reddit posts where they're like, I have a 4.0 and a 528 MCAT. Will I get into X? Like, just ignore that. A lot of that's fake, but a lot of what Jada was talking about with study tips is I've learned a lot from, Student Doctor, Reddit. I don't know what pre-med, if it's as good as medical school, but yeah, just asking questions and kind of listening to how other people study has been really, really good for me this year.
Awesome. Our next question, a little bit easier than the prior, is what classes in undergrad have helped you the most so far in med school? Like what classes would you recommend taking that really helped you in your classes so far?
I think about this question like when I was in Baylor, Dr. Tandy taught HPhys, human physiology, and that class comes up like every block. It is one of the best taught classes at Baylor, and it's a really good way to show if you like medicine, because even like I don't want to be an internal medicine doctor, but it's still I'm interested in it, and it's made medical school interesting. Overall, and I want to let other people talk, but Baylor has really good classes that really prepared me well for medical school. But specifically, Dr. Tandy's HPhys was really good.
I'm going to jump on that train too. I'm a little biased. I was Dr. Tandy's SI, but it was a great experience. And like Chase said, it comes up over and over and over again. And I don't know how many of you guys are juniors. I think I took it when I was a junior. I think you can take it as a sophomore too. But when the time comes, I know I know the stigma of the class, and I know people get frustrated, but take it for what he's giving you and run with it. Memorize it. I'm literally doing a renal block right now, and I pulled out my Dr. Tandy notes the entire time. It comes up over and over and over again. As much as you don't want it to, it does. So pay special attention in that class. But Baylor does give you a very well-rounded education. I was a biology major. And so just, it's basically the entire pre-med track. And so paying attention in class and just like doing well in your classes is gonna pay off way more than you realize in the long run.
So I've answered this question differently before, but like a couple that I think deserve special mentions are Dr. Dean's, if she's teaching histology. Like that class is just, it's a lot of information. It's a lot of like looking at them under the microscope in lab and like learning how to learn almost. And she has a great like project with pathology. I think twice during that course, and that alone, like, and we did pathology in every single block, every single organ system block in my medical school, and so having a foundation in histology and pathology was like set me up well. I also took immunology, and that was helpful, like my very first block. So like foundations of science, I think is what it was called, and they do a lot of immunology there, and so that kind of like set me up to do well. After that, I'll say like everything in med school is pretty darn new, so there's nothing that'll set you up perfectly, but like those two, histology and immunology, I really liked and taught a lot.
I can't really give advice on the Baylor side of classes since I did not go to Baylor, so I'm so sorry I cannot give Professor Rex. But yeah, definitely everything that everybody has said. I know I considered maybe taking anatomy and physiology my senior year, and I didn't. I was like, I'm only gonna take 9 hours spring, like senior spring. I'm gonna play super hard. And then COVID hit and I just sat at home, which was nice. You know, there's definitely some nice things to that, but definitely if you can load stuff on, especially for physiology and also like histology, you cover it in medical school. It's definitely going to be way more intensive, and like you're going to have to know different things in medical school for it, but it will give you a better understanding. We kind of race through it. And even like the first week, we just had the first week of our renal block last week. And even like within the first week, like they throw pathology in and like the stuff that went wrong. I'm like, I'm still trying to figure out what it looks like when it goes right. Like, can we like talk about that for like a second? And you end up piecing it together like as the module goes on, but they like throw like right function and wrong function like at the same time. So if you're able to get that good foundation on how things are supposed to look and supposed to work, you'll be all the much better off for it later. Even if you don't remember every detail, you'll at least get it.
I will throw in a last minute Baylor rec. Dr. Parisi's anatomy class is well worth the pain and suffering. Do it. Even if it, like Monica said, you may not completely understand everything, but at least having one pass through it before you've been in medical school is incredible. It's a great advantage to have.
Awesome, thank you guys. So the next question is, what was the most difficult adjustment that you had to undergo when transitioning to medical school?
I think Jada and Chase have talked about this, but just understanding that your study habits from undergrad might not be what works in medical school. I think I always loved doing like the really colorful and pretty and like aesthetically pleasing outlines and like drawings, and it was super helpful in undergrad, and it made like studying fun, and it can be helpful in medical school too. But the thing with that is it takes forever. It takes so much time, and you don't have that time in medical school. And I really, really tried to force that time my first couple of weeks. And I was so frustrated because I was like, how do you like know XYZ? Like I'm still going over like Tuesday's lecture. And so sometimes you just have to abandon the things that were good and true to you before. And so just being able to ask those students that are at your program that are older than you, like, hey, like what worked well? Like what resources are worth my time? Like what works? It might not be the most comfortable thing for you like immediately, but it's okay to be a little uncomfortable in change. But it will pay off to be flexible in that way more than it will be to be like super stubborn about, well, I did this for 4 years. Medical school's different. So your study habits will definitely be different too.
Yeah, for me, the hardest thing was just like COVID, like moving to a new city and trying to meet people, but being responsible. So if you're a first year or second year, it's been tough for med students too. And hopefully your career at Baylor will get a little bit better next year.
Okay, wonderful. So the next question, would you say observation or shadowing hours is the best thing you could do to look good for medical schools? How much shadowing or work experience in the hospital did y'all have before applying to medical school?
Just as a casual reminder, there is no perfect applicant. There's no specific number of hours you have to get to be a good doctor one day. You need to do what is true to you. Do the things that make you happy. And if medicine is your path, the things that make you happy will lead you right into medical school. That being said, I had a job over the summer working with an orthopedic surgeon at his office. It was not glamorous. It mainly involved, helping out the podiatrist in the office, take off dirty socks. But it's less about the time and more about what you're getting out of it. I learned, the way I wanted to be when I do become a doctor. I learned how, like, the traits that I wanted to have. I learned that I don't want to be a podiatrist. It's those sorts of things that you've got to spend time on and reflect on. It's not about the number of hours.
I took, now I'm struggling to remember the name of the class. It's like the medical humanities class. It's only like 12 people, and you like do rotations on different specialties every week. If anyone knows the name of it, just like pipe in. I can't remember. But Dr. Barron is the one that did it. And those experiences I had in that class, yeah, supervised clinical medicine, that's what it is. That class like gives you a door open to like a bunch of different specialties. And so when someone was like, or like when an interviewer were like, oh, what are you interested in? I had like a very good spread of like experiences to draw on in different specialties. So I could talk about this really cool surgery I saw in neurology, how like that like kind of made me want to be a urologist, and those kinds of things. So like even though it wasn't a long amount of time I spent with each doctor, it was only like 3 hours each. Like they're very impactful. So very similar thread, like those experiences were impactful and I could speak to them rather than having a certain number. Like I don't think I ever got asked like what number of hours I spent doing something.
Okay, so the next question is, what is it like or how hard has it been to balance medical school and your social life / relationships while adjusting to either COVID or your first year or new rotations or anything like that?
Yeah, so for me, medical school has been kind of interesting because it's definitely a lot more material, but there's ways to study it extremely efficiently. And so in some ways, like at Baylor, I felt like I didn't always know how to study and I overstudied a lot, whereas my medical school's pass fail. So like I don't try to get 70s, but I don't have to like worry about 94 versus a 93. And so I actually have a little bit more time than I had at Baylor. And then with social stuff, like with COVID, you're still trying to be responsible, but like medical school is really cool because everyone is not necessarily like-minded, but is kind of similarly oriented, and everyone likes hanging out and works hard.
I think in medical school, you really learn how to prioritize your time. There's always more that you could be doing, but at some point you like kind of hit diminishing returns. And kind of like I said earlier, it's important to remember that you're a human being. Like you're not suddenly going to become like a super machine when you're in medical school. Like you still have like social needs and emotional needs. And so if you're able to keep that in mind and prioritize those as well, with a healthy balance, then it's perfectly doable. And the nice thing about medical school is if your friends are also like first year or like medical students with you, everyone has the same schedule and like life experiences. I know in undergrad, like there was one semester I had 25 midterms and it was like ridiculous. And I never saw any of my friends that semester. And they're like, you fell off the face of the earth. And I was like, I literally had to study all the time. And at least like in medical school, like people get it. Like whenever you have free time and are like relaxed, like, oh, I just took a test. Like all of your friends also just took a test and they also want to blow off steam. And so that helps a lot. As far as maintaining relationships, I think it's like I'm biased in that my boyfriend and I are in medical school together. We're both in the like MD MPH program together. And so with that, especially like it makes it easier in that like we understand how our time needs to be divvied up. And like some of our like time spent together can be like helping each other study, which is kind of corny, but it's nice and it's helpful, and somebody gets it, like if he's like, hey, like I really need to buckle down, like I totally understand it. And like if I have to buckle down, like he also understands it. But I know there's like plenty of people in my class that are in relationships with people outside of medicine and they think that that's really great and they would hate to be with somebody that's in the same program as them. And so it's definitely doable. It's just about good communication skills and like prioritizing what's important to you and having like boundaries with your time, with everything.
I just finished 5 weeks on general surgery, so can attest that time management will be difficult. You will not speak to your friends all that much sometimes, but it will be okay. Hawaii, like the time change is just terrible. Like it's 3 p.m. here right now. So there are times where it'll be tough to like make sure to really invest in your relationships with other people, but always do that because those will fulfill you like when your studies do not. Like some days in general surgery are really hard and you don't get a lot of positive feedback sometimes, and your friends can be there for positive feedback. And so this is a tangent a little bit, but I started dating a second year when I was a first year in medical school, and that was really helpful. Just like in the scheme of things, like he, teaches like taught me a lot of things on like what to expect. And so even if you don't start dating a second year, like befriend some second years or third years, someone who's ahead of you because they can really help you out along the way.
One thing just to add is it may seem forced, but you have to schedule your time with these people because it's that important. I live with my fiance. We work on opposite schedules. He works overnight and I'm up all day. So we don't see each other for but a few hours, but those are sacred hours and that's okay. There's a saying here that you have to schedule your joy, and you schedule your joy before you schedule your studies because you can work around that. You still have to put in the time, but make sure that you're investing in yourself and taking care of yourself because the people around you and the relationships you have are far more important than the medical degree, I promise.
All right, let's move on to the next question. It is, tell us about your gap years. I know Chase took 2 gap years, and I don't think any of you other ones did, but I could be wrong. So tell us why you did not take a gap year or any gap years if you didn't. And Chase, please tell us about your gap years.
All right, I'll lead off about the gap year. So part of the reason I took a gap year was personal. My girlfriend and I wanted to sync up at a med school, and we're both at Mayo, but she wanted to do the MD PhD program, and so she took some more research years. I found this cool global health computer science fellowship in Seattle, and was there for 2 years and had a great time and learned a lot. And so I think that was really nice because I didn't feel like that was really an opportunity at Baylor. And so it kind of was an opportunity to learn new skills, kind of see a different side of research, like we kind of had been talking about, that wasn't, pipetting. But I'd say probably in my class, it's probably 50-50, but it's not like deterministic. I don't think a gap year automatically makes you more competitive. I don't think a gap year automatically makes you look worse. Like everything we've kind of said, it's what you do with it. And if you do something you're passionate about and can talk about in the interviews, it'll help you. If you sit around and kind of don't show that you're working towards something, I do think it could actually hurt you.
I didn't take a gap year, but just based on the makeup of my class, there's nothing wrong with gap years. And I mean, our age range in our class, we have a guy who's 40 and he's the coolest classmate ever. Mike is like our dad. We love him. So like there is no one way to do this. And I hope that's the overarching theme that you get out of this. There is no right way and there's no one path. So just do what fulfills you.
Just to make sure, like, it's common at every school. So my school was actually, I'm in the minority of people who like went straight through from college to med school. And my school like has a lot of people who have been in the military before. That's kind of the school that I'm at. And so there's people with a vast number of experiences. A lot of people who did really cool things like in the Middle East in the past couple of years. So like their experiences, like I look up to them for that. So like, even if you don't do super cool things like that, like you can still do something that'll like be kind of a like cool story or like a something for someone else to like wish that they had that. Like you can do whatever fits you best, and it'll reflect well.
One thing that sorry to jump in again, but about gap years, the only mistake I've seen, and it's not really a mistake because if you need to do it, you need to do it. But a lot of the people that I've seen that push off taking the MCAT until their gap year tend to regret it because it's something that's over their head. It really impedes them from doing something that they really want to do. If there's something they really like doing, like when I was in Seattle, some people had to take the MCAT. They chose, it just didn't really work with their schedule. I know the MCAT's extremely difficult to plan during school, but if you have to take it during your gap year, you can. It doesn't look bad, but it makes it really hard to have a fulfilling like gap year, and it makes it really hard with like the schedule of applying to not end up taking 2 gap years or kind of having to keep pushing back.
I think ultimately, like number one thing to keep at the forefront of your mind as you're going through undergrad and are getting ready to apply is really being able to reflect on yourself and what it is that you are interested in and passionate about and what it is that you need. Like Jada said, like there's no right or wrong way to do it. If you have like an interest in something that like is or isn't related to medicine at all, like taking a gap year and being able to explore that is great. Like nobody's going to look at that and be like, oh, like you put that off. Like at the end of the day, when they're reading through your applications and are interviewing you, like they want people that are passionate about medicine, but about like anything, like if you sit down and like interview somebody and it's just like, oh, like I did this I did that. And you can get a feel for when somebody was just checking boxes. So with that too, if you want to go straight through and like that's what you want to do, like that's great. Like there's also nothing wrong with going straight through. I know some people are like, oh, like, well, now that most medical students are like non-traditional, should I take a gap year? Like, should I do that and then like do XYZ to like beef up my application? Like if that's what you want to do, then you should. But if it's not what's calling out to you, then like don't force yourself into anything to look a certain way for schools. They will see right through it and you won't be happy and no one wins, you know? So overall, do what excites you, and it'll fall into place. And the time is going to pass anyway, so don't worry about the time.
Well, wonderful. Thank you all so much for your responses. Very, very fascinating stuff. Now we are going to transfer over to the audience Q&A. So if you did not have a chance to submit your questions or we did not have an opportunity to ask your questions, you can either type them in the chat and our panelists can answer them for you, or feel free to just unmute yourself and you can ask your question that way. So I know it's going to take a little while, but anybody just hop into it if you would like. Oh, go ahead, Michael.
Hi. During y'all's interview process, what was there like any were y'all ever asked a question that was like very intriguing and like made your mind like really work and like have to think to like how like what you're gonna say is gonna be like the best answer for it in a way?
I didn't, unfortunately. A lot of the interviews I had were just kind of talking about myself in different ways. Yeah.
I think one that I found pretty interesting was if you were to open up your own practice like right now, like tell me about it. And I think it is definitely like interesting to be able to think on my feet of like, I know I like have like thought about like, oh, like I, want to be this kind of doctor and I, want to make sure that I do X, Y, Z. But I think being put on the spot, like, okay, like you're a doctor right now. Tell me like, what does your practice look like? How do you run it? Who are you seeing? What is that like? Was definitely a great question, like a much more interesting way of asking like why medicine and like what do you want to do? Like I think it was a really good way of like teasing out like what kind of doctor I want to be. And also like understanding the medical system in a way. So I really liked that question.
So we have a question here in the chat and they ask, at this stage in medical school, do you have an idea of what specialty you want to go into?
I'll start by saying I had all of the ideas about what I wanted to be, and then I got to medical school and that went straight out the window. There are way more things than I ever thought I could be. I mean, it's like, there's a cardiologist and you can be an orthopedic surgeon, I felt like I knew. I didn't know. There's so many cool things you can be and so many different paths you can take to get there. I think my best advice is just to be like open-minded and don't be dead set on anything so you don't miss out on an opportunity.
It feels like almost every like doctor and or person I've interacted with since being in the hospital have asked me like, what do you want to do when you grow up? Like, meaning like, what kind of specialty do you want to do? And at first I was like, explain, like, oh, like in college, I got super interested in OBGYN. But like initially when I was interested in medicine, I wanted to do the peds. Anyway, moral of the story is now I just say I have no idea because I have no idea. And like my last surgery rotation, I really enjoyed, but I like cannot definitively say I want to be a general surgeon because I haven't seen anything else. And so, yeah, just know that a lot of things will wow you and some things won't. And so just follow your gut. Like find your people is one thing that I've been told a lot. And so a lot of the times, like someone won't figure out exactly what they want to be until they like are with those people, like on a clerkship rotation. So that's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting to find my people.
Yeah, on that kind of, Monica kind of alluded to this. It's not only like what specialty you want to do, but what context. Like if you're like Reagan and you're going to be working in the military as a, I don't know, a cardiologist, that's a lot different than in a rural location, which is a lot different than at UT Southwestern or the Mayo Clinic. So it's like a very difficult thing to think about when you're in medical school. You don't know your responsibilities with your family, with your significant other. So unless you have like a specific encounter with a disease in your family or something, there isn't really a good reason for you to have one specialty that you're interested in. Medical school is awesome because it's like a candy shop. You get to do so much. You get to see all the specialties and kind of pick people's brains. But yeah, I echo everyone else that I thought I had an idea, and then I came here and there's a lot more options than I thought were available.
And it's totally okay to realize that what you're interested in, like, they're not at all related. Like the thing, like I have a pretty open mind, but the three that like have my eye are like OB-GYN, ear, nose, throat, pediatrics, like two opposite ends of the body and like completely like very like specialized subset of patient groups. And so I'm like, I don't know. And it's okay. You'll realize that there are different things that you like. And I think when I first started medical school, I was like, oh, my interests are all over the place. Like, what do I do? Like, I like too many things. And like, that's wonderful and that's perfect. And it's okay to like even get further in that. One of my mentors, she is infectious disease. And she was like, yeah, like when it was time to apply to residencies 4th year, she's like, I was going between infectious disease and hand surgeon. And I was like so taken aback by that. I was like, wait, what? Those are completely like night and day specialties. And she's like, yeah, like that's okay. And she's like, there are more things that you'll have to weigh in, kind of like Chase was saying, as you get further into your medical education. And so I think like first year is a really great, like first and second year and even third year is a really great time to rule things in. You might be like, oh, like shopping cart, like, oh, I like this, I like this, I like this, instead of being like, oh, like I don't like anything. And like I only want to do this one thing. And so I think it's a great time to figure out like what excites you. So yeah.
So this pandemic obviously has been very impactful for a lot of people. It's transformed a lot of people's views on medicine, has encouraged people to go into medicine, but also probably changed some pathways where they said, hey, I actually don't want to get involved in that. It seems a little too intense for me. Someone in the chat asked, has the pandemic impacted your view on the field of medicine, and how so?
This is a little bit of or just like a narrow view, I guess. But I started at this hospital in February, and my like schedule was moved around. Like I was supposed to start in January, and everything got changed around because of COVID. But like one thing that happened was I was feeling really sick one morning. I didn't start feeling sick until like after I like got to the hospital, and so I like told my like fellow medical students like, hey, like I'm not feeling super great, and she's like you should go home, like just go home. And there's like so much more understanding now, like with people being sick, like you don't need to be in the hospital, you don't need to be putting other people at risk. Like if you're the medical student, you're feeling sick, like you're going to interact with a lot of people, and like it's not worth that 12 hours you're going to see patients for in order to get them sick, if that makes sense. So I would just say there's an increased amount of support among people in medicine, which I would really like seeing.
There's definitely a negative reflection after COVID, all the gaps in our system, inequities in race, inequities, socioeconomic status. There's also positive. There's so many people that worked really hard, like all the ER nurses and physicians and everyone that were going to the hospital during the pandemic. I think it's really inspiring. And also just like the scientific, producing a vaccine, doing all the different medication trials. I think there's very promising. I think things will change and there'll be a more equitable system. There's a million different ways that could happen, a lot of different political, it's not just one way. But it is heartening to see that there's so many people that sacrifice so much I guess what I'm trying to say is like, it's different than if you were going to be a computer programmer or if you're going to be even a lawyer. Like it's definitely something sacred to enter into healthcare and to join a healthcare team. And it's exciting to be able to try to improve care in the US.
Okay, so unfortunately, we are nearing our time to end. We got so many amazing questions that I would love to just keep asking you all, but this is going to be our final question for the night. And it's a very good question. Was there ever a point academically, it's going to be a two-part question. Was there ever a point academically where you weren't doing as well and you felt you should have, or sorry, let me start over. Was there ever a point academically where you weren't doing as well as you felt you should have been? And did it ever make you doubt or reconsider medical school? And also, how prepared did you feel going into medical school?
I've probably told this story a million times, but I made a 46 on my first bio test in college. I just knew I couldn't be a doctor at that point. I mean, it was over. And I totally understand what that feels like. But looking back, it was such a small blip and such a long story. Yeah, that it was a low point, but it was the wake up call I needed to change my study habits and to, buckle down and adjust and reach out for help. So those moments are not fun for anyone, whether it be one test or a class or whatever it is. They're not fun, but you'll get through it and it'll be worth it. And you need to share those stories and be candid with the people around you because everybody thinks everybody has it together and really nobody's story is perfect. And then the second part of that question about being prepared for medical school, academically, I don't think there was anything better that could have been done. However, you're never going to know until you're in it. Everybody says that medical school is like drinking out of a fire hose. That's an understatement. So just know that whatever you did to get in is enough. And from there, you just have to keep working hard.
Yeah, there's definitely my fair share of tests that I did not do so hot in or on in undergrad. There was one genetics test that they like squished like all the math to like add up to that grade and like had, like the line and then the grade under. And it was like, I was like, that's either a 42 or a 92. And then I opened up the test and realized the hard way that it was a 4 under the line and not a 9. And it was absolutely devastating. But it's one of those things like in that moment, it feels like the worst. And you're like, oh, like, how am I ever gonna treat people or like have people's lives in my hands? Like nobody's ever gonna want me in their medical school. And that was like sophomore year of college. And I completely forgot about that until now. But it's totally doable. I think you definitely will have moments, even after you get into medical school. Like medical school isn't a walk in the park by any means. And there are people in your class that somehow like rock everything out of the park. One girl, my third week of school said, oh, I thought medical school was really great until I missed one question on that one quiz. And I like literally cried after she said that. I was like, I did not do well on that quiz at all. And homegirl got a 90 and she is feeling bad about herself. So there will be times even after you get into medical school where you'll think, oh, like they got the wrong Monica Martinez. That's a common name. They did not want me. They probably wanted somebody else. And it is really just important about remembering why medicine. And I think volunteering will help a lot with that, where you kind of get a sense back. You're like, oh, like, I'm not here for the tests. I'm not here for the quizzes. I'm here for patients. I'm here to advocate for certain groups. I'm here to right the wrongs that I see in the medical system. And like, sure, you have to do well on those tests to get there, but you're human. You're not going to be perfect and knock it out of the park all the time. And you don't have to get like a 4.0 your entire life to be able to get where you want to be. So it's okay to not do super well. And yeah, nothing can really prepare you for medical school. Just work hard.
Really quick. So I would say the same thing translates to like clinical medicine and being in surgery clerkship. I got pimped, aka like asked like a ton of questions in quick succession until you fail. Like the point of pimping is to make you fail to get to the point where the whoever's pimping you, usually lieutenant or chief resident, like understands where you are so that they can build your learning from there. And so it's really just like encapsulating the point that like, okay, you don't have to know everything, you're not supposed to know everything, and like others will help you along the way and teach you. So don't get discouraged.
Yeah, no, I definitely had rough spots. I think it really helps during those just to remember that it's almost always about having like enough sleep or not getting behind in studying. It's so rarely like it was never about an inability. In the moment, you have low self-confidence and you feel like it's an inability, but usually, you got sick the week before or something like that. I felt really prepared in medical school. Like I said, I think Baylor, the courses are really good. And if you can get through and be competitive for medical school, it shows you're very resilient. That doesn't mean that the same study styles are going to like pay off in the same way, but it's a huge mark of what you can do. And yeah, classes are taught really well.
Thank you all so much for that. That's why I like that question so much, because it's very relatable. We've all been there. Didn't do so well on a quiz or a test, but that does not define you. And I also just wanted to briefly mention that, there's unlimited resources that you can go to for help. Obviously, Baylor has so many resources that I don't even know about, but BMSA specifically, we have a lot of resources that can help you. And we also have a thing called the Mentorship Committee. And so if you ever need to talk to anyone, if you want to ask these questions to an experienced upperclassman, we have plenty of them that are ready, willing, and able, and they're there to help you with whatever problems you may have. And so unfortunately, we couldn't get through all the questions tonight just because we had such a small time frame and there were a lot of questions. But if there's anything that you would like us to answer that we didn't get to ask, please go to the website and email us. We'd be more than happy to try and help you or get you in contact with someone who can. And so with that, I'll pass it off to Delaney to close the meeting. And thank you all so much to our panelists and our guests for joining. I know it's very difficult to try and steal an hour out of your day away, but we greatly appreciate it. Thank you all so much.
Cameron said that very nicely, but thank you guys again for joining us live for this meeting. It was a special treat to get to see some of your faces, not over Zoom, I guess, but it's still better than nothing. But those of you who are in the meeting right now, your attendance is already recorded, but go ahead and fill out the Google form that Megan just sent in the chat so we can make sure that we have all your attendance recorded. Those of you who are going to be watching on YouTube later, there will be a Google form in the chat or the comment box on YouTube, so you can fill that out to get your points by Saturday at midnight. So thank you guys for coming. Thank you so much again to our 4 panelists taking the time out of your day. We know how valuable your time is, especially in medical school. So you guys are free to go. Thank you so much again. Thank you to our general members for joining. And if anybody has any questions for any of the officers, you are more than free to stick around and ask us. But thank you guys so much, and hopefully we'll be seeing you soon.